Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issues number 4 of The Ultimates, written by Denise Camp. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. Hey everyone, this video will play out just a little differently than the previous comics, due to the way the creator put this issue together. Because this issue operates in 4 different timelines at once. So the way I'm going to cover it is in numerical order, starting from how Reed's Doom got his power to now. So with that pretext out of the way, this issue starts off in the early days of Reed's life, when he was still full of life and thriving in a university at the age of 13. Coincidentally, his professor asked him what the 4th dimension was, and like the Reed we know, he was able to answer it without a problem. Following that, we pick up in his dorm where he first encountered his closest friend, Ben Grimm, because, during his university days, they were roommates. And as the years went on, of course, he met Susan Storm, one of the most important people in his life. So with that done, we get to see Reed pitch his new transformative idea, the same idea that set everything into motion. And as he argues with the board, Reed tries to convince his peers by saying that with the readings they will take from the center of the cosmic storm, they will be able to see the universe and themselves in an entirely new way. The speech he gave was so engaging that Susan was on board ever since, and as a result, so was Johnny. With all parties in play, the team was now on track to achieve Reed's goals. Until they encountered their first roadblock, because on their mission to make Reed's dream a reality, the 4 of them had been spending money at an absurd rate, so the director of the project, Susan's father, had to slow down the funding. So with the money running low, Reed had to expand the scope of his work, which required him to get a security clearance. And once that was accomplished, he of course brought his closest friend along. Because one thing Ben always wanted to do was something important. Because Ben went on to say, his grandfather flew against the Nazis and his father flew against the Eurasians, and now he was able to fly too. So with everything falling in line, Reed and Susan fell madly in love, which fueled him to dive headfirst into his work. Now at this point was when his next roadblock hit, because on the next page, we learn that the government decided to shut down the entire project for numerous reasons, which included going wildly over budget, failing safety inspections, and most importantly the board didn't see a practical application for his research. Now this of course pissed Reed off, so with that major setback, on the next panel, we see the maker inside Reed's lab manipulating his equation, and putting his trap in order to prevent them from ever becoming heroes. So as the maker was doing his worst, we jumped over to Ben, Susan, and this universe Reed at a bar drinking their frustrations away. And during this gathering, Reed vows that he won't let anyone stop their project, especially since they spent years of their lives on it. With Reed's mind made up, we see Ben, Susan, Johnny, and Reed talking about how they could continue the project in secret, because originally the project called for a team of 9. But Reed decided to break the rules and go with a team of 4 instead. So with the team all together and ready to do their best. Now, with their plan in place and their minds made up, Ben picked the lock, and within moments, they stole the suits and broke into their prototype ship that was created by Reed earlier in the timeline. Once they were locked in, Reed told Susan there was nothing to worry about because, once they came through the storm, the rest of the people back at home would see them as heroes. From their perspective, the 4 of them were about to make history. So right before they were about to take off, Reed hinted about how he wished he had enough time to check his calculations, but due to the time constraint they were under and the cancellation of their project, it was now or never. Now, this is a big deal because, as we saw earlier, the maker interfered with his calculations. So once they were in space, the craft was set, but in a dramatic twist, everything went wrong, for a gigantic fire broke out in front of Johnny, which forced them to crash land back on Earth. So with the dream coming up as a complete failure, the 3 surviving members of the Fantastic Four were forced to stand trial in front of a military general. And during that interaction, the general stated that the 3 of them just destroyed a $10 billion project and had broken 100 laws of the North American Union. But to make things worse, they are also now responsible for killing a minor. So with that explained, the general tells the 3 of them that they will spend the rest of their lives in jail. Now with that news given, the 3 remaining members were completely broken to the point where Ben decided to take his own life and committed suicide in an abandoned quarry. As for Susan, her future ended in a similar way because, due to their cosmic joyride, the radiation from space started to tear her cells apart and now there was nothing they could do to save her. So with all that established, we jump outside of time and space, where the imprisoned Reed comes face to face with the Maker. During their conversation, Reed asks the Maker what is going on and how long they have been there because he can't tell if he was imprisoned for minutes or months. That was on purpose because the Maker could control the fourth dimension, which means he could squeeze centuries of pain into just a few thin moments. He can make a single conversation last a lifetime. So with that statement out there, the Maker went on to torture Reed in every way possible. With pain ripping through Reed's body, the Maker goes on to call him Doom and states that he don't make mistakes. But instead, Doom does, because Doom made a mistake that killed his friends and ruined lives, mistakes that blew up in his face. While all this was going down, Reed was completely confused, because he had no idea why this stranger was doing this to him. To which the Maker states that Reed's name is indeed Doom just as sure as he knows his own name. Because everything Reed touches, everything Reed is, everything Reed loves is all doomed from the start. Now with that stated, the Maker started to reprogram Reed's mind, and stated Doom is who he is, and once he was done, he ordered Reed to say it. And after endless torture, Reed gave in and called himself Doom and accepted the name as his own. Now with that out there, we jump over to the current day, where we see how the multiple timelines play a part in the story. Because on this panel, Doom states that they have to think in 4 dimensions if they want to change the world, because they have a time machine and they need to fix it. So with the Immortus engine off limits, we see Doom approach it and take the power into his own hands. Just like he did several times before in the past. Now this trend will play a part in the comic moving forward. So for the next few pages, I will show 3 of the 4 correlating panels. With that out there, on the next page, we get to see how Doom was able to watch every step in his past from the construction to the launch of his spacecraft. And during this look into the past, Doom was able to see his friends' faces one last time happy before everything went bad. Because as they said earlier, events before they disabled the Maker's temporal shields are out of reach for now. Now, this includes the death of Johnny and the crashing of the shuttle. So with the engine in hand, Doom tries to do what he even said was hard to undo. Now, with a weapon in hand, he attempts over and over again to blast the display image of the past in an attempt to change whatever he could. But with frustration building up, Doom attempts once again to edit the past by force but fails. So, with pain in his heart, Doom was once again forced to watch the torment that the Maker unleashed on him. With blood on his hands, Doom dropped to his knees and stated that he was sorry for he tried, but he would never stop trying. So with his experiment a failure, we hear Iron Lad's voice calling for Doom in the distance, because according to Iron Lad, Doom missed another mission that they really needed his help with. Because if it wasn't for Cap and Ant-Man, then they would all be dead. Following that, Stark looked down and noticed that Doom's hands were damaged, to which Doom replied by saying his hands were hurt in an experiment. Because Doom suffers from periods of extreme despair. And during these periods, it is as if he is oppositely charged and lost in an all-consuming universe where nothing is possible. Now this state of despair, Doom calls his negative zone. So with that stated, Stark apologized but had to say that was still no excuse, which was something Doom understood and promised to try to communicate better in the future. And then Doom went on to say, he wants to work on Project 4 some more, because Doom wants to be able to bend cosmic forces to his will. But to achieve that, extra precautions are required to avoid unnecessary loss of life. And because careful means slow, Doom continued to say he was working and progress had been made. For Doom has been able to give the power of the Fantastic Four to 4 mice, but despite his achievements, Doom is still having trouble finding the correct composition and dose of cosmic radiation to keep the mutation stable. Because the supercharged mice keep dying. So with the potential of success on the table, Stark volunteers to help, but Doom insists that he could do it on his own, for Tony doesn't have the expertise. Because Doom has been studying cosmic energy his whole life. And on top of that, this is something Doom must do on his own. Now this was something Stark did not like, because he told Doom not to let his ego jeopardize their mission. To this, Doom states that a billionaire boy king, who was pampered since the womb, has no right to accuse him of having too much ego. For in Doom's eyes, it is Tony who jeopardizes the cause. Because Doom states that Tony made an arbitrary, irrational decision to abandon the Immortus engine and all of time. So with the argument heating up, Tony went on to say that the use of the Immortus engine was responsible for killing and destroying lives. But see, that was not a good excuse for Doom, because he asked how many lives Tony think that the Makers had taken and destroyed. So, with that statement tossed Tony's way, Tony states that he lost a lot, but that is when Doom interrupts him and says, "No, you lost nothing, and you don't know the meaning of the word, and one day perhaps you will." Following that, Doom went on to say that he always felt incomplete and that something was missing even as a boy. So, when Doom read the Maker's files, Doom at last saw the shape of this absence. Doom discovered that the knowledge of reality's incompleteness is an awful burden, a burden that led his mice to starve themselves to death. For he saw the world in a new way and couldn't stand it, because with that knowledge in hand, it ends up changing you and making you into something you never imagined you could be. So once the mice stop dying, then the Fantastic Four will be ready to return. With his position made clear, Tony backed off and left Doom to carry on his work. And with that said, this issue ends with 14 months until the Maker returns. So with that out there, if you want to stay in the loop about any individual storyline, then how about you hop over to the playlist section down below or in the link cards above to get all caught up on the Ultimate Universe. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.